Hi everyone, welcome back to The Rustic Wife. I'm Alana. So I am heading into the woods and I'm going to be collecting some wild leeks. It is, I think it's May 4th and I'm in Ontario, Canada. And now is the time when the wild leeks are ready. So I'm going to take you along with me while I forage for these wild edibles and I'm going to show you what to look for. So the first thing you want to do before you forage anything is, if you're on private property, make sure you get permission from the landowner, because people may not want you traipsing all over their land. Also, if you are on public land or crown land, as we have here in Canada, make sure you find out if it's legal to forage anything from those areas. If you see them on the roadside or in a ditch or anything like that, just be mindful that there's road salt and you just don't know what's been in that ditch or who's been in that ditch. So just those are the things you want to do before you head out. So the environment where you will find wild leeks, or ramps as they're also called, is in a deciduous forest. And you'll see here in this hardwood forest, there are no leaves on the trees yet. And that is a perfect condition for leeks to grow, because these trees are late to burst their buds and produce leaves. And once the leaves come out and cast a shadow or shade on the forest floor, the leek leaves will actually turn yellow and they'll die back. So early spring is the time to go out searching for wild leeks. You can see on the forest floor here, there are some little plants popping up that are green, but you can see right here by that sun ray right there, you can see that these leeks are quite bright green compared to the rest of the plants popping up right now. So you can see this patch is fairly plentiful. There's not tons, but this is a good patch to check out. And I'm going to show you here what to look for. So this is a wild leek or wild ramp, and it consists of leaves and sometimes, or most times as I've seen them, a reddish kind of deep purple stem. And then underneath the soil is a bulb, almost similar to like a spring onion. So these leaves here, there's generally 2 to 3 that emerge from one bulb stem right here. These leaves are fairly thin. You can see the shadow of my fingers through that leaf with the sun on it. You can see that it's kind of thin here at the base where the stem is. It gets wider and then tapers off again at the point. And these leaves are generally anywhere from about 4 to 12 inches. And the telltale sign to see if this is a wild leek is it smells and it tastes like an onion. You will not, as soon as you pick a leaf and you smell it and it smells like an onion, you'll know that's a wild leek. If you're going to head out and harvest some of these leeks, you want to make sure that you're harvesting responsibly and sustainably, because these plants can take anywhere between 7 and 15 years to multiply. So they are a perennial, but they're very slow to multiply. So if you wipe out a patch like that, it'll take a very, very long time, if there is a bulb left or if there were seeds in the ground, a very, very long time for that patch to be like that again. Also, after these leaves die off, once the tree leaves have shaded the forest floor, it will produce a scape, which looks like a garlic scape. And eventually in the summer, there'll be a flower, and then the flower will produce seed pods. Those seed pods will dry up and fall to the ground, but they can also take up to 2 seasons to germinate. If the soil temperature is not optimal, it can take up to 2 seasons for them to germinate. So make sure you do harvest responsibly and sustainably. When I go out to harvest anything, I always make sure I have a basket. I always make sure I have a book. Make sure the resource book that you have is pretty local to your area. Now this one is Edible and Medicinal Plants of Canada, and like I said, we're in Ontario, but I do have some from the States, and some things grow very similar in certain states as they do grow here. But just make sure you have a reference and just do your own research. You don't want to just trust just anyone. Even me, you might want to do your own research. So pick yourself up a book. It's really good to have. I carry that in my car with me. I have a little hand spade here, and I also have scissors. I usually just pick the leaves off, but you can bring scissors if you want. If you're harvesting on crown land or public land, you want to make sure that you aren't wiping out the patches. And just remember, you may be one of 1,000 people who are heading out to harvest. So if you and 1,000 people started digging up all of these bulbs, there really wouldn't be any more left, and we don't want to run the risk of endangering a certain species. So if that's the case and you're on public land, it's best to actually just pick one leaf per bulb here and leave the other one intact, because these leaves have just as much flavor as the bulb, and the whole plant is actually edible. So it's just more responsible to just pick one leaf per plant and leave the bulbs intact. If you are on private land and you're one of just maybe a couple people who are harvesting, you can harvest the bulbs, but I would never take more than 25% of a patch here. Actually, I probably don't take even that much. I would just, gather bulbs here and there, and then mostly pick leaves. I'm going to show you what these roots look like, or these bulbs. Make sure you use a little hand spade or something, because you don't want to rip your leek in half. See the root? It's just like an onion. Looks just like a spring onion here. So this is what it looks like. So there's the roots, the bulb, the stem, and the leaves. And again, every part of this plant is edible. I usually take the roots off, but you could probably eat those too. Put that back there. Now, because this patch isn't very big, I'm actually just going to harvest one leaf from each bulb. And these are excellent in soup and stews. Any way you would use an onion, they're excellent. And they freeze well. You can dehydrate them. I want to keep this patch here, and I want to let it get bigger and multiply more. Here's a really nice patch of them. So I'm going to dig up a few bulbs from each little cluster, and they are really, really good pickled too. So I was going to make some refrigerator pickles. They're plants that are just emerging the same time the leeks are. They don't have the same leaves or anything, but there's the trillium that's just coming up. Also, you can see these leaves here. They're spotted, and they are right among the wild leek leaves, and that is a trout lily. It's not poisonous, but it's not what you're looking for. I just noticed that the trout lilies are starting to blossom. So pretty. Look, it's starting to come out. So that's the little trout lily flower and the leaves. Not to be confused with leek leaves. They're much smaller, but still, they grow amongst them. So when you are identifying the leek leaves, you can smell it. It smells like a really fabulous onion. So you know that that is a leek. And it tastes exactly like an onion. So good. We had these on our hamburgers the other night. I cut some up on hot dogs, put them in potato salad. They're just so good. Put them on pizza, anything you do with an onion. And the leaves make an excellent pesto as well. Also, along with the responsible and sustainable harvesting, you also want to make sure that you're not really greedy. You want to just take what you're going to need for that season. You don't want to wipe out the leek population here to put them at a farmer's market or something like that. So just take what you need and eat what you take. So also what you want to do is when you're digging the bulbs, you want to shake off this dirt back into the hole, because there may be some seeds from last season that haven't germinated yet. So you want to just shake them off back into the soil so that they can have a chance to germinate. Aren't they lovely? And then I just usually break up the soil and kind of pat it back. There we go. This is a nice little patch here. Again, I'm only going to take a fraction of this patch and then move on to another one. This is all I'm going to harvest for tonight. It's all I need. I'm actually just going to make a very small jar of refrigerator pickles from these leek bulbs. I'll cut the leaves off and use these two that I've just picked from smaller clumps. And I will wash and dry those, and then I'm going to store these in the freezer. So that's it for this evening. I'm just going to head home and clean up all of these leeks that I just picked and pickle those bulbs. I don't want to waste anything. So, God, it's such a beautiful evening. I love the spring. Happy to be able to forage again. And next is fiddleheads, and then after that it will be asparagus. And I've done a video last year, and I can link that above, and you can check that out if you're interested in foraging for wild asparagus. So I hope I covered everything that I needed to say about where to find and how to identify wild leeks. And if you're heading out to forage for some, good luck. And remember to be responsible and to harvest sustainably. If you enjoyed today's video, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you again next time.